What you do when you feel triggered, when the story you're telling yourself feels so obsessive, you don't even know how to break it. How do we break those patterns? How do we become a conscious creator in our life and stop responding, reacting, overreacting to life situation based on past old programming and instead choose consciously what we want and reprogram our mind to a new mind? I think this is so important because as we become conscious creator, meaning we consciously choose to grow, attract, create certain things in our life, we need to become aware of how we respond to life, how we perceive life, what we're projecting into life. And a lot of my recent past videos have been into understanding how we project our thoughts, our beliefs, and so on onto the world around us, and how those stories, those beliefs, whether it's about your self-image or the world or your relationship, affects not only how we think, how we feel, what we do, what we attract, but also the result we have. And if 95% of what you do today is automatic, unconscious, repetitive, the same as the previous days, then it's fair to say that your life is only a repetition of your past. Because if you do the same thing every day, then how is anything going to change? So as we look into things that triggers us, as we look into things that triggers resistance, anxiety, negative thoughts, or limiting story, or that inner critic, we have an opportunity to become empowered. We have an opportunity to break that cycle, break that pattern, choose again. And this is so empowering. And so I'm going to give you one simple way, but that is extremely powerful to break that pattern, to break those triggers, and to become conscious in the moment, to choose again, to create something new. And basically, to make what was once subconscious and unconscious consciously aware of. Now, our course in Miracle, which is a fantastic course, teaches basically that your perception affects everything you do, but that nothing means anything unless you give it a meaning. So nothing means anything until you give it a meaning. So you could not know a chair to be a chair unless you knew it to be a chair based on your past experiences, past knowledge, and relation with it. And that's what happened to kids when they discover the world and they touch and they don't know what is, and they ask questions and they try to figure it out. It's the same that what happened when you learn something new and you pick up something new that you've never seen before, and you're like, wow, what is this? How does it work? We then create a meaning. And we usually create meaning based on past familiar experiences. And once it's in place, we rarely challenge that meaning, whether it's empowering or not. We take it for granted, this is what it means. And a lot of our perception comes from childhood and so on, and life experiences, and even our self-image. We make decisions based on things that happen that may not be longer true, that never were true, but we think it's true, and we keep on reacting, responding to the world based on our perception. So our course tells us that if you want to change your life, if you want to stop suffering, if you want inner peace, you need to be able to change your perception and see things as they really are, without the meaning and the story behind it. And so what I want to invite you to do is to practice the simple tool that I'm going to give you that is inspired from the course. And this is this: when something happens in your life, let's say you're out, okay, and you see an attractive man or woman, and all of a sudden you start to feel maybe resistant, tense, or shy, or nervous, and the story goes into, well, I'm not handsome or pretty enough to have a boyfriend like that. I don't have enough money to provide to a woman like that. I don't have enough success, or whatever it might be. That limiting story, that pretty much that lie you tell yourself. In that moment, when you start to notice the story coming up and the emotion rising, I want you to tell yourself this. This doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean what I imagine it means. So as that story goes up, well, to have a beautiful woman, I need to be handsome and successful and smart and rich. All those crazy thoughts that may be coming up. That's when well, look, This doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean what I imagine it means. This allows you to step back, to take control over that thought, over that unconscious story. It gives you power back to choose again, to see this situation again. Another example might be you look at your bank account and straight away you feel that anxiety, that scarcity come up. Oh my God, I gotta pay the bill. Oh my God, I need money. Oh my God. Now you're starting to look at money, finances, through the lens of the past. Scarcity, not enough. So in that moment, you can break this by telling yourself, you know what, this doesn't mean anything. This number doesn't mean that I'm going to run out of money. It doesn't mean that I'm poor. It doesn't mean that I'm broke. It doesn't mean that I'm all those things. It doesn't mean what I imagine it means. And I want you to think really hard about that. It doesn't mean what I imagine it means. How often do you imagine shit that really doesn't mean anything? But you make yourself worried, you make yourself anxious, you make yourself suffer on thought and imagination alone. How often do you imagine that you know what people think of you, that you know what people might say? How often do you imagine the worst case scenario? So all the meaning that we give to things is somehow started in our imagination. We imagine what things means, but in reality, nothing means anything unless we give it that meaning. And that's why we all see life differently and uniquely. And that's why we all have a different perception of what love is, what money is, what a relationship should be like, and so, and so forth. But when that meaning, when that story, when that pattern, those beliefs or that self-image is disempowering, negative, or triggering you in a way of that includes insecurity or scarcity or fear or belittling yourself or whatever, then you have to step up to that. And you have to notice it. You have to welcome it, but you have to interrupt it. And you have to tell yourself it doesn't mean anything. And this is so incredibly powerful and liberating, because then you can choose again. You can ask yourself, well, what does it mean? What is the truth then? What is a better way of looking at this situation? But above else, you become a conscious creator in that moment, because you choose to no longer let that old story pollute your awareness and your consciousness again and keep on reacting endlessly the same way over and over again. And this is where the difference is made. So as you walk into a room and you start to feel shy and you start to tell yourself, oh my God, what if I mess it up? What if people don't like me? And that story and that voice comes up. You can tell yourself it doesn't mean anything. Even if I mess it up, it doesn't mean anything. Something didn't work out, it doesn't mean what I think it means. It doesn't mean I'm get fired. It doesn't mean that this is over. It doesn't mean that my life is shit, that I suck, and all of those things. We have the control over what it means to us. And it's our incredible power to choose what something means. So the way we have to really stop those triggering thoughts and stories is by claiming conscious power and conscious creation over those thoughts, if that makes sense. By choosing what it means and interrupting it. So I want you to play, because all of this is great if you listen to it, but if you don't apply it, you won't get the experience of it and what it means and how you can, in your own way, use that in your life and tweak it in a way that works for you. Notice what comes up. Maybe you want to go to the gym and you feel like, oh, my body's tired today, I don't have the energy. Maybe that's something you tell yourself every day, that you're tired, that you don't have the energy, that you don't have what it takes. But is this true? Does it really mean what you imagine it means? Or could it mean something else? Think about that for a second, because it's so powerful once you get it. So go ahead, play with that. Notice as soon as you can, the sooner you can notice that you're starting to respond or react or feel emotional, interrupt it with that thought. Liberate the old and create something new. It doesn't mean what you think it means. It doesn't mean what you imagine it means. You can choose again, and you can choose an empowering meaning.